And big story, Bob Mueller, his hearings. And Morgan, we can't wait to get to your opinion on what you think about Mueller.
Well, yeah, you were asking me over the break, so I'll just tell you just briefly what my opinion is it doesn't look to me like Bob Mueller is really involved in the details of his report. It doesn't seem like he knows anything more than generally what was going on, and he doesn't seem to be very strong on supporting the conclusions of the report. In other words, he'd rather just say that something's not within his purview than really defend his report. So, again, it just tells me he was a figurehead in this investigation. He wasn't an integral part. And this was the Andrew Weissman investigation, as we've long suspected. And this was being run by Weissman, who's kind of a rogue federal prosecutor, does what he wants to do. But now let's hear Louis Gohmert get fired up about that, as only he can do.
Regarding collusion or conspiracy, you didn't find evidence of any agreement, I'm quoting you, among the Trump campaign officials and any Russia-linked individuals to interfere with our U.S. election, correct?
Correct.
So you also note in the report that an element of any of those obstructions you referenced requires a corrupt state of mind, correct?
Corrupt intent, correct.
Right. And if somebody knows they did not conspire with anybody from Russia to affect the election, and they see the big Justice Department with people that hate that person coming after them, and then a special counsel appointed who hires dozen or more people that hate that person, and he knows he's innocent. He's not corruptly acting in order to see that justice is done. What he's doing is not obstructing justice. He is pursuing justice. And the fact that you ran it out 2 years means you perpetuated injustice.
I take your question.
Gentleman's time has expired. The witness may answer the question.
I take your question.
I take your question. That was his answer a couple of times. I guess when he didn't really have anything to say, all he could say was, I take your question. Well, now on our Out There segment, we're going to go listen to what Jim Jordan questioned him about, because here again, we've got a guy who comes off pretty hot, Jim Jordan, and does a nice job. And it's amazing to me that the Mueller report admits that Joseph Mifsud lied to them multiple times, but they didn't charge him. They charged all these other people, but they didn't charge Mifsud.
Director, the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be
charged a lot of other people for making false.
I mean, that's what the whole report is about, is the internal deliberations about whether or not they were going to charge the president, right? Well, let's go on to hear some more of what Mueller can't get into.
Papadopoulos tells a diplomat Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's a guy who told Papadopoulos, the mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times. And yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies, and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, we can't get into it, and it's obvious, I think, that we can't get into charging decisions.
When the FBI interviewed him in February, FBI interviews him in February, when the special counsel's office interviewed Mifsud, did he lie to you guys too?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Mifsud?
Can't get into that.
Is Mifsud Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into.
You definitely can't get into that, right? Anything that would be bad for them, they can't get into. The fact that Mifsud was a plant by the FBI to go out and plant this information with Papadopoulos so that it would come back to him, so they'd have the pretext, a false pretext, to open up an investigation. He can't get into that. But let's end on a happy note, though, because Jim Jordan ends on a happy note, and I was glad to hear it. And he's got some good news for us. So let's hear from him, and we can finally end these clips on a happy
What's
note.
interesting, you can charge 13 Russians no one's ever heard of, no one's ever seen, no one's ever going to hear of them, no one's ever going to see them. You can charge them. You can charge all kinds of people who are around the president with false statements. But the guy who launches the guy who puts this whole story in motion, you can't charge him. I think that's amazing.
I'm not certain I agree with your characterizations.
Well, I'm reading from your report. Mifsud told Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos tells the diplomat tells the FBI opens the investigation July 31st, 2016, and here we are 3 years later, July of 2019, the country's been put through this, and the central figure who launches it all lies to us, and you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. Now, here's the good news. Here's the good news. The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Mifsud was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news. Here's the good news. That's exactly what Bill Barr is doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Woo! I tell you what, I'm looking forward to that. I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to find out why and how this whole investigation was started. Remember, it was started by the Obama administration, and it looks more and more, just like George Papadopoulos has informed us, that it was not started on a legal basis. They were actually spying on American citizens without a warrant and doing it in many different contexts. And remember, the FBI investigation wasn't supposedly even open till the beginning of July of 2016. But this had been going on for months beforehand. So the good news is that Bill Barr and John Durham are looking into it. I'm Morgan Streetman, and that's the way I see it. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.